So, welcome back to the Fishing Daily podcast. In this episode, I am joined by Michael Desmond, Chairman of NIFA, and Vice Chairman John Menarry, and we'll be talking about the situation with the fuel crisis, and we'll also be having a look at the allocation of mackerel that was made to Ireland via the European Council yesterday. Welcome to you both.
Yes.
We'll start off, I suppose, with the most recent event, which was the allocation of the mackerel quota. And NIFA is calling for a fair share to be given to the Inshore fleet. John, what's the situation? Has there been any update on what's happening?
Well, I suppose to go back to the very start, Oliver, it's always been a mantra of NIFA that there should be fair and equal access to both resources, and quotas national asset. It belongs to nobody, but unfortunately, well, it doesn't. Not that it doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to the Irish people. It's a national asset, same as anything else. But unfortunately, over the years, ministerial policy has continued to privatise it for a minority, and the 32 million or 8,000 tonnes of mackerel that was announced yesterday won't benefit any of our over 300 members in any way. Unfortunately, it'll benefit 50 vessels or SW vessels that's in the fleet and nobody else, but with something that we'll be continuing to ask for a fair share of. You'll hear maybe on social media about talking about inshore vessels having 10 tonnes of hook and line mackerel to catch, when in reality there's 400 tonnes of hook and line mackerel available to the inshore fleet. And at quota management, the decision was made to make allocations of 10 tonne, but once that 400 tonne is utilised and the fishery is closed, so it's 40 boats at a maximum will be allowed to catch 10 tonne out of even Ireland's quota now. This year will be 20,000 tonnes, so there's a mere drop in the ocean, unfortunately, for the vast majority of the fleet.
A quota like 400 tonne, what's that value-wise for the inshore fishermen?
This year we don't know. Unfortunately, it won't be anywhere near what the 4,500 tonne that the larger vessels are getting, primarily because the way the quota is fished, or the management arrangements are in place to try to stretch that 400 tonnes over as long a period as possible. And unfortunately, the way the pelagic industry is set up in this country now, that 400 tonnes could be processed in one Killybegs factory before dinner time. So the cost of processing, etc., when it's diluted into such a small amount of fish, it leaves it very little return for the inshore vessels this year. Be lucky to get maybe half of what the larger vessels are getting, simply due to the economic scale of the operations, etc.
And what would be a viable quota for the inshore fleet?
Well, we've asked in the past, and we'll continue to ask for something in the region of 5% of the national quota, mackerel quota. I know, like, we're talking about 5% of the quota for 95% of the fleet, but there's no support amongst government or any other fishing organisations. It seems to be, we have the Seafood Industry Alliance now developed in Ireland to sort of circle the wagons and make out that they represent the fishing industry in the country and work closely with the government and the ministers. They're constantly in Europe, and they seem to have the ministers here, and we can't seem to get a fair hearing or a fair allocation of quota for the size of the fleet. In fact, ministers in the past have actually reduced. We used to have 13% of the national quota available to the polyvalent sector, which was the vast majority of the sector, and ministerial policy has privatised that for 27 vessels. So the inshore sector is basically fighting for scraps at the moment.
And speaking of the Seafood Ireland Alliance, was NIFA asked to join at any point?
We had contact to join, to look at a meeting to see what possible common ground we could have, and we said yes, we'd be delighted to explore that. But since then we've heard nothing. I think maybe perhaps they were hoping we would say no, we didn't want that to do with them, but we've never had an official invite or any discussions like that.
And we know at the moment that lots of the inshore boats are very heavily dependent on the crab fisheries. There's been a sort of a attempt to close the spiny lobster fishery, the crawfish fishery. Has there been any other avenues developed for the inshore industry? There was talk about the spur dogfish. Was there anything ever done about that?
Yes, the spur dog fishery has reopened, and this year now, hopefully that'll be a viable fishery, because before this year, the EU had a maximum size of 100 centimetres to try and protect the larger fish for spawning, etc. But unfortunately, we have been told all along that as fishermen, we need to catch the bigger, older fish and let the smaller fish grow. But then in their wisdom, the EU decided to reverse that, and unfortunately, in gillnet fisheries and other fisheries, you're predominantly targeting the larger, older fish, and that negatively impacted our ability to prosecute the spur dog fishery in the past. So hopefully, maybe this year that'll be an avenue for fishermen. But just on the inshore sector being predominantly based on a potting industry now in the minute, that's basically down to ministerial policy over the years and stripping our access to traditional inshore fisheries such as mackerel and herring. We had the situation this year in the Northwest herring where we had almost half the quota went uncaught. 1,500 tonnes went uncaught, when then the inshore sector was only allocated 350 tonnes. And if 1,500 tonnes went uncaught, that would have made a massive difference to the inshore sector if we'd been allowed access to that. But ministerial policy doesn't allow for that. The same with the mackerel, etc. So there's so much of the problems the inshore sector is facing at the minute that is down to previous ministerial decisions. And I don't know, for whatever reason, it seems maybe it's an Irish thing. When ministers and people in public office change things and they don't seem to work, it seems to be easy to change them and make things worse, but it's nearly impossible to reverse poor decisions and make things better for people for whatever reason. I don't know.
Is it time for the minister, now that we have a minister for fisheries, is it time for him to review the situation that's affecting the inshore fleet? Do you think there needs to be like a real in-depth review to what has happened over the past, say, 20, 25 years?
Yeah, well, definitely, Oliver. Yeah, there has to be a major overhaul. Like every single policy change in the last 2 decades benefited the minority at the cost of the majority. I haven't seen anything in the last 2 decades that benefited inshore. You know, it's cut by cut by cut. The bass was taken, salmon was taken, trout was taken. We can't even shoot a net for a mullet in case you catch a salmon. The eels were taken off the lads up the rivers, and they're saying that didn't affect us. But then they came down shooting pots as well. Our quota allocation for mackerel and herring were taken off us. They'd badly want to take a leaf out of the GA handbook, maybe. Like to have any successful GA club in the country, you look after the underage fellas first. The small, the under-8, under-10, under-12s, up to minors. Then you get a strong senior squad. What's after happening in the fishing industry is all the money is poured in, whether it's grant aid or quota allocation, to the very top and lets it trickle down to the bottom. Now there's a different inshore fisherman leaving the industry every single week. But on paper, they haven't left. For starters, their boats on for sale because no one's going to buy them. Secondly, they just go away and do a shore job and wait for things to get better. But things aren't getting better. It was our own government banned all those inshore fisheries. Our own government can reopen them in the morning. Like salmon and that were the beating heart of rural coastal communities in the most peripheral areas of Ireland. And they just left to die. And I can't see why the current minister's in there now for well over a year. We gave him 10 points at the beginning of his term. There hasn't been that we wanted done. There hasn't been one done. We produced an in-depth document of what needed to be done for inshore before Christmas. We got widespread support from our government coastal politicians and opposition. The Joint Directors Fishery Committee rubber stamped it for us, said that they would write to government on our behalf, telling them to introduce the financial aspect of our government, And we're told nothing can be done unless we can do it through the task force. And now we're told that the task force isn't going to meet again until May. And sure, by the time the recommendations go in, the government will be going into recess for the summer. Like, it's just the task force now looks to us like a method of kicking the can. People are leaving the industry, they're leaving every day. Like Pascal Donoghue said when he was leaving that he had 40 billion put away for a rainy day fund in Ireland. Well, it's torrential now in the inshore fishing industry. People's own rainy day funds have been used up. Fellas who had anything saved lost it during COVID to stay going, again during Brexit, again during the war in Ukraine. And now, like this winter, weather-wise for small boats was absolutely terrible again. The government know that we do not have an income. They're well aware we do not have an income. We cannot get social welfare, etc. But at this stage, what good is social welfare to businesses that are tens and hundreds of thousands of euros in debt? Like, it's very easy for them to help us if the will was there. But, you know, the truth is, we hate to admit it, but the truth is we're not wanted, Oliver. They'd have done something by now if they wanted coastal communities to survive. They've done absolutely nothing whatsoever to help us. Like the major increases in operating costs, fuel, bait, insurance, maintenance. We have spatial squeeze from the offshore renewable energy, which is basically a giant pyramid scheme. There's a drastic reduction in fishing days, but most importantly for our members, like there's a huge increase in imported inferior quality shellfish from South America, countries and Asia that we just can't compete with price-wise. And it's being sold as Irish. And not only is it Irish, but it's not even not Irish, it's not even seafood. Like these creatures never saw the sea in their life. And there's companies then in the Irish seafood sector using false labeling or misleading labeling, I suppose I should say, to sell them as Irish at a fraction of the cost of what it costs us to produce them. They're being flown in from South America and Asia, a huge carbon footprint, and we're told we must go green by 2030 and have electric engines, while they are doing that instead. Like, this didn't happen by accident. Like, the government are giving money to these companies to do this. They've got millions and millions of euros in state aid, and then they're putting us out of business with that money. Like, it's scandalous what's being done to us, and there's just zero help.
Well,
I better stop.
It's one of the other situations where we're looking at other countries talking about food security, and Ireland has left themselves in a position where there's no food security. There's no security for the producers of food in the country, and the imports that they're bringing in is absolutely destroying the domestic producers. And when we look at the EU and the amount of seafood that's importing from the likes of Asia and South America, it's absolutely stunning. And then when you look at Ireland, as you said, the seafood producers in Ireland, they're being forced, they say, into buying from the markets outside of Ireland in order to be able to keep going. Yet and all, we have a fully functioning domestic seafood industry, seafood producers like yourselves, that is not receiving any support. Like the farmers get support and farm payments. They get, depending on their situation, they get extra payments if they're in certain areas. And yet and all, one of the important food producers, or should be important food producers, like the inshore fleet, is being wiped out by the government.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree with you. And they can't say that that's happening by accident. Like, they're standing over it. They know we need financial help. They refuse to do it. Like, imagine the effort it took from government ministers, Minister for Fisheries, Hayden, whatever, to get that mackerel policy overturned at EU level to go against ISIS advice. Like, that took some effort. And yet, when it was the pollock, we lost 100%. They said, oh no, can't be done. Can't help you, lads, sorry. ISIS advice. The lads that were at the prawns, the hake, the monk, haddock, whiting through the years, every single cut that we were told nothing can be done, lads. Tough luck. But yet, when it was the mackerel, oh yeah, here goes another 32 million worth of mackerel there for a few of it. I mean, like, come on. They know they could help us if they wanted to. When they're able to do that for one sector, why can't they put the same effort into the small sector? Simply because we're in the way of ORE and MPAs and everything else that they have envisioned around the course for the future. And we are not part of the picture. And they know if they keep kicking the can long enough, we'll eventually, there's probably 1,000 lads gone in the last 10 years over it. So if they keep it on long enough, we'll eventually die off and they can do what they've planned in becoming an electricity, energy producing country and not a food producing country.
Yeah, and the other big thing which confuses me is the talk that we want to develop our tourism industry. They want to lift the cap on the number of people flying into Dublin Airport every year, and yet and all they're destroying the coastline. What makes Ireland Ireland? It defies belief that such smart people and Dublin could be so naive at the same time. The other big problem, and it's a big problem for everybody, but the recent fuel crisis had a huge impact on us. Can you describe what's happening at the moment?
Yeah, I'm getting phone calls every night. Before I got this, you're calling out to do this podcast. There was 4 lads on to me this morning, just telling me that they can't go out. It doesn't pay them to go out. And what can we do? Like, we feel guilty. We're a producer organization for the last 3 years, but we're hoarse. Like, we're just hoarse for asking for help, and there is none for coming. I mean, they had their chance there last Tuesday. They did that with the reduction in the fuel cost, but they left marine diesel out of it. Like, they knew we needed help, and they said, oh, the motorists were affected more. Their price at the pump, they have to pay the VAT or whatever. A person drives to work, gets out of their car, stops the engine, doesn't start it again till they're driving home. Our engines are going all day long, 24/7. Like, we needed the help, surely more than the fella that was working in the office. But again, it's just an example. If they keep cutting us, I don't know, Oliver. I mean, like, what they've done to us and taking our livelihoods there, if we had money that we could sue the state, we'd have it done long ago. But we can't even get funding to run our PO. Like, it's just brutal. I see there where the government, our human rights activists and lawyers all over the world are taking on the Cambodian government because they got rid of farmers for for tourism villages. That's what happened to us when they took the fisheries office. It was lobbying from the tourism industries, got rid of fishermen all around the coast, and according to the UN Charter, it's a violation of your human rights for your livelihood to be taken from you. According to the Irish Constitution, the state is supposed to protect your livelihood. And what they've done to us is purposely taken it from us. So, there's a court case there, but we can't afford it.
Unless you have the financial clout or you get the backing of some major organization, you're basically going to get wiped out. You're going to get crushed. And that's the end of your right to make a living. That seems to be the way it is. Might is right, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. John, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say on Michael's point there, I've been starved of funding. NIFA's a producer organisation almost 3 years now, and then so far we've managed to secure, I think it's just €11,000. And I wouldn't even say funding. It's money we spent, and we were able to claim a small proportion of it back. But it seems to be a systematic top-down approach to try and starve the organisation of funding. It's either that or there's total and utter incompetence on behalf of BAM and the Department of the Marine that are dealing with us in relation to our producer organisation status, because you have a situation where you send in your application, etc., and somebody in the department and BAM tell you, yes, we've received that, that's great, everything looks 100%. And 6 months later, the exact same person emails you asking for the details that you sent 6 months previous, and then you explain you have them, and then they, oh yeah, we found it, that's brilliant, thanks very much. You wait another 2 months and the same person then gets back to you and say, oh, sorry, that's on the wrong form. You're going to have to start all over again. So either it's total and utter incompetence, and if that's the case, then the people that are totally and utterly incompetent need to be taken to task, or there's a systematic system in place to prevent us getting funding. So it's very hard to see how these civil servants in these high-paying jobs could be totally and utterly incompetent, but it's either one or the other.
Yeah, John. But the ironical thing is, I seen your article was in the Irish Independent, one of those newspapers, a few weeks ago. You're the last full-time fisherman in Killybegs. You know,
just to give maybe a bit of clarity, some people might have been put out at those Irish Times on the headline said that I was the last full-time fisherman. There's a few more of us left in the town, thank God. But as far as I'm aware, my vessel is the only full-time fishing vessel in the town now at the minute. There's a few vessels that would fish throughout the year, but would take a number of months. Different months, they're not active, and we know the larger vessels, they're only 20 or 30 days fishing in a year. So for the largest fishing town in the country to have basically one full-time vessel, and it's a struggle at the minute for the size of my vessel to be full-time. You couldn't really call it full-time when you're tied up for weeks with bad weather, etc. It's just an indictment on the government how it gets so bad from a town that when you used to drive into it, when I started first, you had to drive around the piers to see where your boat was amongst the fleet. And now there's nothing in the town, unfortunately.
yeah, and it's indicative of all around the coast where you'll find that the boats that's operating are the smaller boats. There's no place you go into now where there's a boat over 50 foot. It's mainly Greencastle, Killybegs, Rossavie, the bigger places, and even at that, it's a struggle. It's going to be a struggle for them in the next couple of months and the next year. So
Yeah.
going forward, you said you presented the minister with the 10-point plan. What is the most important aspects of that 10-point plan, and is there anything that you've added to it since, or you'd like to add to it?
Well, right now, the most important thing is immediate financial supports. That's necessary, just like the amount of arrears people have gone into in their mortgages, in their boat repayments, in their electricities. You know, they can't stay going. So unless they're given immediate, meaningful financial support, it is finished. Like, you know, the few of the wealthiest lads will be able to hang on for another while or that, but like the vast majority of us won't be left with a choice, because at the end of the day, do we wait or do we support our families? So that is what has to be done immediately, Oliver. But on what you said there about the ports and the boats over 50 feet and that, like, yeah, that's all correct. Like, our ports are becoming ghost towns. Our fishing villages are becoming ghost towns. But yet the reports from BIM state that the Irish seafood sector's profit is up. Now, how, if our ports are ghost towns, the fishermen are gone and the fishing boats are gone, how is the sector's profit up? And that is because the fish that the so-called Irish seafood companies are importing are being classified as Irish. So they're able to give that over to you. You didn't say, oh, golly gosh, look at us. We survived Brexit and war in Ukraine and everything, and we're so good, we're still in profit. When in actual reality the industry is totally decimated, big and small. But as for what can be done now, it's financial supports and reopening.
Interesting to see what their next step is, but it's difficult to see coming down from the top from the likes of Martin or from the Taoiseach, Simon Harris, that they have any understanding of what's really happening to the fleet?
Yeah,
I
that's why we want a meeting with them immediately to see if we can get it through to them. But it looks like I don't know, Oliver. Can they really be unaware at this stage? Like, no, can they really be unaware of what's happening?
It's difficult to know, because when you look at like I've heard some people who's recently had meetings with the ministry, and he's been quite dismissive of some people that has met him, and it seems to be that he's taking his brief from the department rather than having any investigation or having anybody there to investigate matters for himself. So I take it that's the situation throughout the government.
I think,
Maybe
Oliver,
the Mulvey report might shed a bit of light on that. Sorry, John, go on.
no, I was going to say, like on Oliver's point there, there's none so deaf as those that don't want to hear. And you see from social media, even your own social media there, Oliver, that according to the so-called Seafood Alliance that represent probably 5% of the fleet, you would think that the minister has done a wonderful job in Everton is rosy in the garden with this 32 million of extra mackerel. It'll, I said before, it'll benefit 50 vessels in the fleet, a couple of days extra processing in the country, and that'll be it. It's probably worth more to one pelagic factory in the north of Ireland than it is to the entire inshore sector. But the minister's happy to surround himself with the people that are happy with what he's doing, and that's fine. But to say whether they know what's going on or not, fine, he's the minister, he's only been in the job maybe 18 months or less. But he has people there in his department who are there for years and years and years. And if these highly educated, highly well-paid people, so civil servants in his own department, don't know what's going on in the industry that he's supposed to be leading and responsible for, then you have to ask the question again. Is it by design, or is it total and utter incompetence? And I definitely don't think it's incompetence on the part of the people that's running the department, because it's their job to know these things. So it's hard.
Do you get anybody coming down to the pier to visit you and ask you how things are going? Do you get any civil servant or anybody like that? Is it you, NIFA, that has to do the running to the government, to the department?
Well, to put it like this, Oliver, we also work, I'm also a member of the National Inshore Fisheries Forums, and only through our chairman there, sending an email to the chairman of the task force looking for an immediate meeting, given the way the crisis is unfolding at the minute with fuel, etc. We've had our financial document, etc. But things have changed even in the last couple of weeks from when the task force was set up. And after sending an email asking for a meeting, there was meetings supposed to be scheduled. We were told they were on hold, and only for that email being sent, we were told, oh no, the chairman's unavailable and it won't be available through the whole of April. Now, NIFA is part of that task force, on the board of that task force. We have received nothing from the chairman or the secretariat of that task force to say that basically things have been put on hold. Or the other POs that we work alongside, they have heard nothing officially. It's only through word of mouth that we've been told that it's on hold. So we have our minister telling us go to the task force. I was on radio this morning and Senator Manus Boyle was saying things will be dealt with the task force. But it seems the same week that announcement of an extra 32 million in quota for the Irish fishing fleet is announced, the task force seems to have just disappeared into thin air. It's like the RSW sector's got 32 million. The quota's only been cut in half. The price has tripled. So there's no, as far as the minister and everybody else is concerned, the crisis in the fishing industry is over. That's what the politicians will be told. That's what they'll get from social media. Micheál Martin invited us up to Dublin to discuss the crisis in the fishing industry before Christmas because he heard there was a 70% cut to mackerel coming up. He didn't invite us up when the Spur Dogs was closed 15 years ago. He didn't invite us up when the Pollock was shut down. So it seems it's only a crisis in the industry when it's when it affects the minority, unfortunately. So I don't know where we're going to go from here, but we're not going to go away, that's for sure.
Well, it seems absolutely crazy to have a chairman of a seafood task force unavailable in the middle of a crisis like this that's happening at the moment, because as we're talking, it's not just mackerel, it's your livelihoods, it's fuel costs, it's access to other fish stocks that could really help, not just the fishing, inshore fishing. It's also of benefit to the country if you're catching fish and bringing them into the country, especially at a time when you could see a lot of exports from abroad being damaged because we don't know how far this war is going to spread.
Yeah, and just to take it, like for every fisherman, every job that's lost at sea, there's 7 more lost ashore. So it's not just, you're not just losing individuals, businesses are closing over this. And just like, it's not even about the quotas that are available. To think that 1,500 tons of herring went uncaught, that could have been caught by the inshore sector, could have been processed on land, could have provided more jobs, etc.
Just on there, what you said about it being ridiculous, Oliver, for the chairman not being available. Just on that, I don't know why the chairman is unavailable. The man might have health reasons or whatever else. That's very understandable, or personal reasons he can't do it. But surely be to God, the government should have aligned a vice chair or someone else to take over. Like if I can't make a meeting today, John will go for me or someone else. But surely the head of a task force that is after being put together to save Ireland's fishing industry, that there has to be a replacement available immediately so that it can continue if the chair is unavailable.
So the chairman knew that he was going to be unavailable for a full month. Surely he should not have taken the position because it's an urgent position. If it happened that he couldn't continue on as chairman, surely he should have stepped aside. And as you said, Michael, surely they should have appointed a vice chairman in order to make sure that this important task force was not interrupted.
Yeah, I agree, but I presume the man didn't know that he was going to be unavailable. We give anyone the benefit of the doubt there, but there has to be contingency plans when you're supposed to be saving the Irish fishing industry. But were they saving the Irish fishing industry? We've told them what needs to be done. We've told Micheál Martin what needs to be done. Why do we have to go through a task force for the chair of the task force that didn't tell the government what we've already told them? We're not going to say anything different in that task force that we haven't told every coastal politician in Ireland. Absolutely nothing different. So why then do we have to go through a task force that's going to take 6 months to a year, as usual, to put through recommendations to the government, which are the same recommendations that we gave them before Christmas? Just why?
It doesn't really feel that they're just running you around in circles in order to keep you from getting what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what is the price of diesel today for you?
Well, I'm petrol minus 215 outboard, and on that, the smallest operators, we don't get the VAT back on petrol engines. It's only so the smaller, more sustainable, less carbon, aren't entitled to anything whatsoever. I don't know what the marine diesel there, John probably has a better idea than that, but most fellas are telling me this morning that it's doubled, and their suppliers told them this morning that if they don't fill this week, that it's going to be a hell of a lot more next week. That's the story I heard this morning anyway. But
what
that's right.
Price were you paying this time last year for your petrol?
Me, 170.
170. That's
on the diesel for myself, Oliver. Before it kicked off, it was under 90 cent within a 3 days it was 140. I'm hearing, I haven't got any sense. I'm hearing anywhere between 140 and 160. So you're talking 40, 50, 60 cent increase in the cost of it. We got a 3 cent reduction. So you know how that it's going to make no difference. We've seen other EU countries maybe getting a 20 cent reduction in the diesel. It might help. It'll help a small bit. But the issue for sorry, Oliver.
That's the shocking thing, that other countries have moved. France has moved, Spain has moved, and to subsidize or to reduce the cost of the fleet, the fuel costs, and the Irish government sitting on their hands, really.
Yeah, we had the same situation during the Ukraine war. I attended a meeting at the time of the fishing exhibition in Limerick with Minister McConnell at the time, and we were calling for fuel support, and the minister told us instead of a fuel support, he was paying an extra month's tie-up for the tie-up scheme for the whitefish fleet, which was worth, he said himself, in excess of 12 million to the whitefish fleet. And fine, that's grand, that's great that they got support, but the inshore sector was abandoned that time too. And the issue we have also is fuel is so much cheaper in other countries for the fishing fleet compared to Ireland. And a 20 cent cut, it won't make a difference. And reducing the price of the fuel for guys that it doesn't make it where it isn't economically viable to go to sea. If you're not burning it, the government's not going to give you the reduction on it. So I don't think it's going to be near enough. If something does come, it's not going to help the problem at all.
We've done fuel subsidies, like this is just the final straw. Like,
what's your solution? What would be the ideal situation if the government was going to do something?
if they brought it back to what it was before Christmas and leave it at that until the scare, or, the volatility in the market changes, like there's not that many fishermen left in Ireland. Not going to cost the state a whole lot of money, and they know that. So it would be very easy for them to reduce the cost of marine diesel by 50% in the morning if they wanted to. Like they know there's little or no boats left now anyway. But for us, about what needs to be done, so it's very simple: targeted financial support, reopen closed fisheries, and give us a fairer share of the pelagic quotas, and leave the rest to us. Yeah.
Restore what is taken away in order to simply restore food security in the country.
Like there isn't a person under 20 years of age that has tasted a wild salmon in Ireland. Like, can you imagine that? The best fish we have in the sea is for seals only. No one under 30, wild bass. Our seal population going absolutely out of control. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but rumour has it that we managed to get Irish farm salmon owned by Norwegian companies back into the American market by agreeing not to bring in a seal management plan. Whether that's true or false, I don't know, but if it is true, it's the wrong option because, how can we have fish stocks improving in our coast when we have an animal that has no predator eating hundreds of thousands of tons every year? Something has to give, and it's the fish stocks will give unless seal numbers are brought under control. And everyone knows that, but again, it might cost them votes politically, so they won't do anything about it. It's not about the right or wrong thing to do. It's about what could lose them votes.
Well, the education system in this country has a lot to answer for, because in other countries, our Nordic neighbours and that, they have no hesitation about having seal culls in order to not just protect the fish stocks, but it also protects the population of the seals, because eventually, if you have too many seals, what happens is there'll be a shortage of food. Once there's a shortage of food, there's a famine. Once there's a famine, there's disease. And then once disease gets into them, they could be wiped out.
It's hard to, but they know the backlash of public opinion. Like
Yeah.
it's the same with the wind farms, Oliver. So, like, anyone possessing more than one brain cell knows that the wind farms could have been put on land at a fraction of the cost ecologically, monetarily, environmentally. It would be done in a fraction of the time scale where we would actually meet our climate target. But yet, it might cost them votes on land. It won't cost them votes at sea at all. So that's what they'll do.
Well, as I always say, the thing about it is these very smart people who's decided to put wind farms at sea should go out on a rough day and see how easy it will be to get from a boat onto a wind turbine to fix it when it's broken. And you'll be looking at from definitely November, December, January, February, March, April, and May, and even into June before you'll be able to get seas calm enough in order to do that work. And it's not just one that'll have to be repaired, it'll be hundreds. Yeah. Realistically, to me, it's a fantasy that they have that this is going to be a major winner for them.
Well, it's a pyramid scheme, like the people at the highest up, the oil companies that own them and the hedge fund managers and that are invested in them. It's, green energy is the new gold rush. They're going to get paid out first. They will make their money. And the rest of us will be paying into it for the rest of our lives. And fishermen with the ultimate sacrifice, our livelihoods because of it.
Exactly. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. And I hope we've covered everything that you need to cover today. And the message will get out there to people that the inshore fleet is important and it needs to be maintained.
And just on one point before we go, Oliver, maybe you can squeeze it in somewhere. And we talked about the minister and the department, etc., and whether they know the situation or not. Regardless if they know the situation or not, we have a minister who says he's going to Europe to fight for fair and equal access to resources at EU level, and he's got the support of other producer organisations to do that. He's got support from all of us to do that. But then at the same time, ministerial policy contradicts fair and equal access to quotas, etc. So you have the situation where a minister says he's fighting for fair and equal access, where where almost certainly he's not going to get it, but he won't implement it where he can implement it. So ask him if you ever meet him to answer that question.
I've invited the minister onto the podcast several times, and so far I've received a very mute reply. I'd like to come on and answer questions, but I shall keep asking.
Thanks very much. Take care. Cheers. Thank you.
If you like this episode or any of our other episodes, please hit the subscribe button and show your support for independent news in the fishing industry. Thank you.